Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it is episode 80, where we are talking the Fantastic Four First Steps. I cannot get the movie score out of my head and that main theme. So good, the score. We're going to get into the deep, heavy details today of the Fantastic Four First Steps. It's the MCU version of the Fantastic Four. Before we get into the review, new YouTube video coming this Wednesday, the 30th. It's going to be the mid-year 2025 movie awards, where I'm going to do my favorite movie, my least favorite movie, best soundtrack, best animal, all this good stuff. I have a bunch of fun superlatives we're going to go through and talk about the movies of the year so far. Look forward to that on the YouTube channel. Next, updated Eddington review. I said from now on, if I change my score on Letterboxd, I will update you guys the next week on the episode. I've bumped it from a 2.5 to a 3 because the more I sit with it, the more I'm like, oh, he's actually doing some very interesting stuff. Ari Aster, I realized I call him Ari Aster all last week. That's so embarrassing, and I can only apologize. I deserve a knife to the head, just like a certain character in that movie. But anyways, okay, updated Eddington review. Next up, I am officially going to the 50th annual Toronto International Film Festival. I have been given a press pass, a media pass, after I applied a couple months ago. It was grand. I did not expect to get it, but I am officially going to TIFF as a member of the press. This is my first film festival ever. It's my first thing I'm attending as a critic, blogger, slash whatever I am, review. This is a hobby for me. I'm not making any money. I don't have any money in this. I'm literally doing this for fun. But honestly, blew my mind when I got that press email. I couldn't believe it. It's always been a dream of mine to go to TIFF. Like, that's always been a thing since I was a teenager and started getting more into like movie reviewers and stuff like that in the critic world. I was like, oh, there's a Toronto International Film Festival. That's cool. That was like my 5-year goal, is to eventually go to TIFF as a reviewer. But now I have a press pass in my second year doing this, and that's really cool. I'm very excited. There's going to be so many reviewers that I really admire who are attending, so it's going to be a scary experience. It's going to be a big experience, but I'm looking forward to it. Not only am I going to TIFF, but some life updates. So I'm going on vacation next week for my brother's wedding. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks / all of August pretty much, but do not fret because I have 4 episodes pre-recorded. I will tell you what it is now. The Letterboxd 4 Favorites mini-series. We have 4 parts where I'm going to tell you about my 4 favorite movies. Have I talked about this on the podcast before? I don't know. But next week we have part 1. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then when I'm back from vacation, I'm actually moving to Toronto. Big updates, but I'm still going to do an episode the week I get back. Nothing to worry about there. And then TIFF starts. So life has been just thrown in the mixer this week. In 48 hours, literally, I got we're moving news, and then I got the TIFF news, and I'm going on vacation next week. So it's crazy, but don't worry. There's going to be new episodes. I'm so excited. Anyways, today is also going to be a really good day. It's my final episode before I go on vacation. I'm really excited to talk about Fantastic Four. Timestamps below as always. I don't have a single even hint of what the big issue is here. Obviously Galactus coming to Earth, but what he wants, all that stuff. I'm not spoiling anything, so you can just listen to the news section, non-spoilers, and what else I watched, or if you're okay with spoilers, enjoy the spoiler section. But okay, enough life updates, enough rambling. Let's jump into the news. All right, our first piece of news comes from DC Studios, who are officially greenlighting a pilot for Booster Gold. And no, it will not be played by Kumail Nanjiani, which I believe everyone thought he was playing Booster Gold. Booster Gold HBO Max series. Now why are they calling it HBO Max? Isn't it just HBO? No, HBO Max. What was the rename again? Was it Max? HBO Go, HBO Max, and now it's back to HBO Max? Jesus Christ. See, I can't even keep up with that. But anyways, HBO Max is progressing with its Booster Gold TV series and has attached Our Flag Means Death creator David Jenkins to write the pilot. Hell yes, that is a great choice. If you haven't watched Our Flag Means Death, it is a hilarious, heartfelt, super good show. It was actually out the same time that Peacemaker season 1 came out. I remember I was watching it in my 4th year house. That house was a mess. But anyways, that's a story for another day. Although one time I went to the kitchen when I got up early to go for a run, and my roommate had been like on a 3-day LSD trip or something like that. It was crazy. But this is really good news for me. So coming off of the landmark Emmy nominations for The Penguin, Booster Gold could become one of the Warner Brothers Discovery Discovery's next big DC Comics TV adaptations. So David Jenkins, he's writing the pilot, but he's also going to be show running, and I think he's a great choice because he knows how to do the comedy and the drama, and that's what this series needs to be. Booster Gold is, he's kind of like Rhys Darby's character in Our Flag Means Death, who he's this pirate that leaves his family behind because he wants to be an adventurer or whatever, and he's a bit of a loser, and he feels like he's a bit of a loser, but he's still really funny. It's kind of what Booster Gold is. He's the way I understand Booster Gold, if I have this right, is in the future he's not a superhero, but he time travels, and in our time he seems like a superhero because he has like these advanced powers or whatever, but it has potential to be a really good show. I also saw this week that they were talking about Lanterns, which I think we might see something for Lanterns at Comic-Con this weekend, but I think it's more likely Peacemaker that we're going to see. And I think Lanterns, they really want it to be like an Emmy-winning show. They want it to be like The Penguin, where it's a drama, but it's still within the comic book universe, and I think they can do it. I think I could see that. Kyle Chandler, Aaron Pierre, both fantastic actors, but Booster Gold, this is very promising. Someone said that they should get Chase Crawford, the actor of The Deep on The Boys. I think he would be perfect. He's hilarious, but also some other DC news. So it was reported last week or the week before that Wonder Woman was being fast-tracked at DC Studios, and we officially have a writer for the script. New Wonder Woman movie sets Supergirl writer Anna Nogueira to pen the script. So she's not only writing this, she wrote Supergirl, which I don't know why they're acting like she's still writing it. It's been fully filmed, it's finished, and they're like editing it now, and it's in post-production. But also, Anna Nogueira wrote a Teen Titans script, which I think could be a lot of fun. I think Teen Titans are cool. It's a really cool idea if they're doing this more advanced DC universe a few years later, but I think DC Studios must be really happy with the scripts she's writing. I mean, James Gunn said the Supergirl script, he was like blown away by. He was like, yeah, we're making this right away because it's just so good. Like, the plan was not after Superman to do Supergirl right away, but the script was so good that they were like, let's do it, let's jump ahead with it. And Teen Titans, I believe I read that she's put a draft in for that movie, so I'm assuming she's kind of working at the rewrites on that, but she's also going to start the Wonder Woman script. And it's interesting that they're going with this sort of same writer for multiple projects, because either they like the tone that she has in her projects and they want that to be a more overlapping thing, but at the same time, they have said multiple times, DC Studios, James Gunn, Peter Safran, that they want all of their projects to be different. So obviously she's not directing. It could just be a script that she's doing these different kind of subgenres or tones with the characters, and then the director comes in and really transforms the script off the page into this whole other thing. But either way, I'm very excited about this news. I mean, we're getting a Wonder Woman movie going ahead. James Gunn said it's drastically different from what we've seen in the past with Wonder Woman, so I'm curious what that means. I'm excited because I love Wonder Woman and Justice League animated shows like the Unlimited and Justice League the animated series, but hopefully they can do something closer to that instead of the Gal Gadot stuff, because some of that was just so strange. I mean, the first one's like pretty okay, but Wonder Woman 84, what a weird movie. Clean shaven Pedro Pascal terrifies me. But our next story, Lilo and Stitch 2 has brought back co-creator Chris Sanders to write the script. Chris Sanders, he not only made the original, but he actually voices Stitch, and they brought him on board to write the script. I'm not sure if he's directing the new one, but Chris Sanders did write The Wild Robot. I mean, that was a book before, but he still wrote the film and directed the film, so he does have some credibility. He also co-wrote and co-directed the 2002 animated Lilo and Stitch, obviously, but the fact that he's coming back for this, I don't know, maybe the sequel could be better than the first one, because Lilo and Stitch, the first one, I wasn't a huge fan at the moment. It's the only movie to pass $1 billion at the global box office this year, other than Neza 2, which is a Chinese film. Honestly, it might be the only one this year. I think Avatar Fire and Ash is probably the only other film that has a chance, and I think by Christmas, probably our two movies that hit $1 billion will be Avatar Fire and Ash and Lilo and Stitch. So that's a little depressing, but the fact that they're already greenlighting a sequel, obviously they're confident, because the first one, so much nostalgia attached to it. Kids love Stitch, even though they didn't maybe grow up with it or whatever. Obviously, the box office had a huge return. They were going to greenlight this no matter what, so that will be coming soon. He's currently working at the final negotiations of his deal. And for our next story, there is a little bit of an update on the Michael Jackson biopic. Lionsgate and Universal have moved the Michael Jackson movie to pre-summer 2026. It's now going to be split into two parts. It's been kind of a mess. I think I've reported on it before that they reshot a bunch of it. They rewrote a bunch. I think they changed the entire ending of the film. I wonder if they ended it with him being a pedophile. Who knows? But oh yikes, that's a little dark, I'm sorry. But the delay with Michael has been twofold. One being its length. There was a first cut in excess of 3.5 hours. There have also been multiple reports that the initial cut of the movie made references to 13-year-old Jordan Chandler, who accused Jackson of molestation. Oh Jesus, well now my joke feels a little bit in poor taste. And the pop singer settled with the $20 million lawsuit in 1994 with no admission of guilt, while the screenplay by three-time Oscar nominee John Logan was developed, approved by the estate and shot to include Chandler. After production wrapped, it was revealed there was an agreement for him to not be included. Ooh, yikes. Okay, it's still coming next year, but it's going to be coming in summer, and they're going to split it into two parts. I don't know if they're going to do part one in the summer and part two like around Christmas time, or if it's going to be a year difference, whatever that might be. Either way, I'm not like super thrilled about this. I mean, Michael Jackson, good music, pretty strange person. I don't know. I just think the fact that biopics are being tampered with by the estate of artists, or apparently the Beatles biopic, like Ringo Starr had a bunch of notes and they changed a bunch of the script. I don't know. I just think like maybe there shouldn't be artist intervention on your own biopics or whatever, because you can tamper with it. I don't know if it's supposed to be more accurate or less accurate. Who knows? But I think I'm actually going to wrap up the news there, because honestly, I'm looking at my Fantastic Four notes and yikes, I have a lot to say. So again, timestamps below. If you don't want anything spoiled, you don't want to know anything about the movie going into it, because it's a good movie to see in IMAX. Go see it in IMAX. You know, if you don't want to know anything, stop right here. Go listen to the What Else I Watched segment where I talk about the other Fantastic Four movies and a couple other things. But let's do it. Let's talk the Fantastic Four. First steps. The Fantastic Four First Steps is a 2025 action sci-fi film coming in at an hour 55 minutes, credits included. Without the credits, I think the final runtime is something like an hour 45, hour 48. Very short movie. It is directed by Matt Shakman. This is only his second ever feature film. He directed all the WandaVision episodes. He's done a bunch of It's Always Sunny. He's more of a TV person, so this is, of course, a huge shift for him. Written by Josh Friedman, Eric Pearson, Jeff Kaplan, and Ian Springer, a whole group of writers. The budget is upwards of $200 million allegedly. Box office, it's already done $23 million in previews. It's probably looking at $120 million domestic opening. Reviews are largely positive across the board. 7.6 on IMDb, 89% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 92% audience score, 65% on Metacritic, 3.7 on Letterboxd with a 4-star mode. So pretty positive. I think that's been the big reaction, is everyone really enjoying this. The synopsis for The Fantastic Four First Steps. Why did they call it The Fantastic Four? It should have just been Fantastic Four First Steps. Against the vibrant backdrop of a 1960s inspired retro-futuristic world, Marvel's first family is forced to balance their roles as heroes with the strength of their family bond, while defending Earth from a ravenous space god called Galactus and the enigmatic herald Silver Surfer. The film stars, after a long process of casting, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm / The Invisible Woman, Eben Moss-Backrack as Ben Grimm / The Thing, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm / The Human Torch, Ralph Ineson as Galactus, Julia Garner as Shala Ball / Silver Surfer, Paul Walter Hauser as Harvey Elder / Mole Man, Natasha Lyonne as Rachel Rosman, Sarah Niles as Lynn Nichols / the Fantastic Four Chief of Staff. It's a very fun cast, but let's hop into my initial thoughts on The Fantastic Four First Steps. This was not one of my top 5 most anticipated movies of the year, but I was still very much looking forward to it, and it's good. It's not perfect, and it has some big issues, but it's a good Fantastic Four movie, and we haven't got that before. They finally did it. It's a very safe movie. Let's jump into it with the performances up first. The big question I think a lot of people had going into this, or the big doubt I think that a lot of Marvel fans had going into this, was Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, and I can completely understand those doubts. I think I had a lot of doubts going in as well, but I have to say, after having seen the movie, I think he's pretty okay. There could have been better casting choices, but you know what? We landed on him, and I think he's solid. He plays the super genius really well, but I don't think he necessarily embodies the arrogance that Reed Richards has a little bit more. He has the crazy ideas that Reed Richards has, but I think, honestly, his performance is pretty good, but it's the material that I feel like he's not given enough to work with. I don't know. I think he is right for Reed Richards. He just needs a better story to really shine in, because I think the attention of this movie is a little bit less on Reed Richards. But the third act, I think he's really good in that part. Let's talk about the real star of the film. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm / the Invisible Woman. Probably one of the best written women of the MCU or superheroes in general. She is given like so much to do. I mean, I loved her. I think genuinely perfect casting, and I might say that a few times in this episode for a couple other people that we're going to talk about in a second, but she really carries this film. She's the emotional sort of anchor of our story. For the most part, I would say, you know, Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm do have a big part of this, but Vanessa Kirby, wow, I was genuinely really shocked. She deserves so much credit. I'm so excited to see where she could take this character in the future. She's given a lot of fun stuff to do. She's serving face. She is given like this powerful, insane role that's just really cool because she is pregnant in the film. Actually, she's pregnant in real life at the same time while they're filming Avengers Doomsday, or allegedly filming Avengers Doomsday. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with that movie. It's kind of the script isn't even done and they're allegedly filming. It comes out next year in Christmas, whatever. Anyways, Vanessa Kirby, excellent. She is so, you know, wearing the pants in the relationship between her and Reed Richards. Like, she is the big boss of the family. Then we have, speaking of big bosses, Eben Moss-Backrack as Ben Grimm / The Thing. Amazing. I almost said fantastic. I'm going to try to avoid saying fantastic today, but he's really good. And I really like the personification of this Ben Grimm in comparison to the previous two Fantastic Four iterations. I love how smart, sensitive, and down to earth he is. He really does feel way more human than Rock. I like that they don't change his voice as Ben Grimm. He just sounds like himself. And it's just a really good personification of this joyful character. And same with Johnny Storm. I like Joseph Quinn a lot in this role. I think the contact lenses are a little distracting at times, but at the same time, Joseph Quinn's having a very good little run here. He was in that Quiet Place Day One film. I thought he was really good in that. Warfare, I thought he was fantastic. Probably my favorite role of his. But here, he's given a lot of fun stuff to do here as well. I really like the balance of the characters of what they're given to do between Sue, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm the Thing. One big complaint I had about the past Fantastic Four movies is Chris Evans and Jessica Alba. They had a weird sexual tension even though they're siblings in the films, versus in this movie, they actually do feel like siblings, and it's really great. I love his dynamics with everyone. We'll talk about the character dynamics in a minute, but I think we got to talk about Julia Garner as Shala Ball / Silver Surfer and Ralph Ineson as Galactus. They're both really good. I love their designs. Shala Ball has maybe the best speech, actually the second best speech in the film, I would say, because there is another speech in this movie that I was like, holy shit, I got chills from that, but she's really good. She's hardly in the movie. Really, she only has 3 or 4 scenes. One scene she has is mesmerizing. As for Galactus, Ralph Ineson, great voice, great character design, a bit of a letdown because he's not in this a lot. It's very much focused on the heroes, which we'll talk about. As for the directing from Matt Shakman, look, this is his second feature film. Having only done WandaVision within the MCU, I can understand people had their doubts because John Watts was originally going to direct this. He dropped out because he was a little bit burnt out from superhero movies after the Spider-Man films. After COVID, he went and did other stuff. You know what? Some of the movie lacks a unique directorial vision, I think. I mean, it feels more like the MCU is taking a huge step in trying to do a more unique visual film, but it doesn't feel like Matt Shakman is like a distinct style. I mean, okay, I didn't want to compare Superman and Fantastic Four because I like them both a lot, but obviously watching Superman, it feels like such a distinct James Gunn vision, and it's such a unique popping vision of like, oh, this feels like one director's voice. This feels like exactly like Peacemaker, like the Suicide Squad, like the Guardians movies. Whereas this, it felt like a lot of other MCU movies. I didn't feel a singular voice of like, oh, they're really doing something different here. The only thing that felt really different in this film was the production design, and we'll jump into that. But it's just, I think there is an issue here of maybe Matt Shakman hasn't developed a unique blockbuster storytelling voice yet, and we might get there one day. I think, you know what, for a second feature film, you have to give him credit that he's able to balance this all pretty well. But, you know, the story is, it works, but it feels like there's some things missing. I would say the story never reaches a full peak, or there's moments where I was wondering, like, where is the heartbeat? It feels extremely safe. I think I said that at the start of my initial thoughts. This is a movie that feels like they're trying to not, you know, put anyone or try to give any fans any grievances. They're really trying to focus on the crowd pleaser. It slowed down a touch for me in the third act, but I think the opening 45 minutes, really fun. 1. The entire second act is amazing. And, I think the character dynamics are really good in comparison to the previous Fantastic Four films. It's not just all making fun of Ben. It's, Johnny Storm, he's a bit of a hothead, but at the same time, they give him like a little bit more intelligence and he's not a douchebag like Chris Evans was. And they do balance the screen time of the characters in a pretty good way. I think Reed Richards, his powers are what's missing. Like, as humans, when they're not being superheroes, there's a really good share of the screen time between hour 4. When we're seeing their powers or when we're seeing them in their full-fledged Fantastic Four mode, I think Sue is the one, actually no, Johnny is the one that you're constantly seeing him flame on, all that stuff. But Reed Richards, I can see why there wasn't tons of the, stretching in the promos, because he really doesn't do a lot in this film with his powers. I think there's probably 1.5 action set pieces where you see the Reed Richards powers, which is a shame because it's my favorite of the bunch. But I do want to praise this movie for something that I think this year in superhero films, we have gotten back to embracing the superheroes' relationship with the public. And this started in Thunderbolts. One of my biggest compliments of Thunderbolts is they let them be heroes, save the public, and, receive applause from the public and all that stuff the public love, and people get excited about superheroes again. It's no longer a burden being a superhero. And then we have Superman a couple weeks ago. Superman is loved by the public. He loves being a hero. And same with this movie. They are absolutely loved by the public, and they love the public as well. There's a point where they have friction with the public in this movie, and that works really well too, because it's part of the story. And it doesn't feel like, oh, they don't want to be superheroes anymore. It's that they're scared that people hate them, but they can understand that the public is scared as well of Galactus. And it's a really good turn in this film, but I will say I'm enjoying this trend of superheroes being loved by the public and trying to do good because they want to, and they love doing good, and they enjoy the thrill of being superheroes, and they see their powers as responsibility. That's one really good trend after Captain America, I would say. As for the emotional stakes, I did find the first 45 minutes were kind of struggling a little bit to figure out what is the main issue of this film. And it is interesting that they said, oh, this is not an origin story, but at the first act or the first 45 minutes did feel like an origin story in many ways. As you see in the trailers, Sue Storm is pregnant, and kind of the opening 45 minutes emotional stakes are just kind of Reed being stressed about being a father, but not even. It's more of just this intro and world building, but there's not this huge looming threat. I don't know. I just found it a little bit more like, okay, we're finally getting Fantastic Four. We're going to let them be Fantastic Four for the first 45 minutes. And then once we hit that second act and the stakes rise, I was on the hook. Like, the second act of this film, I will say, is probably one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe action set pieces we have ever had. It is, if you're a fan of Interstellar, like me, I don't know if you love sci-fi, this goes full-blown sci-fi. It is genuinely mesmerizing. It's fantastic CGI. The music is so great. The stakes feel real, and it's so many things happening at once. I loved it. It is fantastic. I didn't want to say it, but I said it. It is fantastic, and it really does work, and that's when this movie really starts to get cooking. And it's funny as well. Like, there's some humor at the same time. It's super dramatic, but at the same time, I felt like the humor was never undercutting the story. I saw some people complain with Superman that there was humor undercutting big moments, but I didn't feel that, and same with this movie. I think maybe we are getting a little bit better in the superhero genre at letting the serious moments play out. That's not to say making them quipless, because these characters are inherently quipping all the time. They're a little sarcastic, they're a little snarky, and that works really well. But I think Johnny Storm, they really don't do the full Chris Evans Johnny Storm quips. They have a nice little reserved Joseph Quinn where he does get taken seriously, and he does feel like a little brother of the group in some ways, and I love that. But the humor, a lot of the humor of this film actually comes from Ben Grimm, and not because like, oh, you're so ugly because you're a rock guy. He is very sensitive about the way he looks. You can see that in a few moments, but at the same time, he's very funny in this, and he's very smart, and that's what I love about him. And that second act, the character dynamics are perfect, the stakes are perfect, the design of it all is so mesmerizing. I was so locked in the second act. I was in love. This is where the movie won me over. But I will say that as much as I was enjoying a lot of this, the editing of this film, I mentioned it's an hour 45 minutes without credits. Some stuff is missing here. There are a lot of scenes from the trailers that are just not in this film. This is a movie that that I think was lost on the cutting room floor. You know, just like Superman, I think it could have been a little bit longer. This one even more so. This could have been half an hour longer. I think you could have gone 2 hours, 20 minutes with this. It's our first Fantastic Four movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's a lot of character beats that feel sort of jumpy between these scenes. There's one scene in the third act particular that I'm thinking of, but obviously I don't want to talk about it here, but it feels very short. And that's not to say it's not well paced. I think it is like keeping us moving. It's not overstuffed. Did they over test screen this film? Maybe. I've read multiple reports that this is the most Marvel has ever done with test screening was Fantastic Four. They were shopping it constantly, listening to test audiences, and they really tried to tailor this to the audience requests. Did they over test screen it? Whereas any scene that didn't fully work for audiences, they just cut out, or there's storylines where they're like, oh, people had questions about that, so let's cut it. As we know, like John Malkovich is completely cut out of this film. That was a story that came out last week. I think that could have been a fun sequence at the start of the film. I spoke to the guy that was beside me. He was talking to his friend, and he's like, wasn't that guy supposed to be Red Ghost in this movie? I was like, yeah, John Malkovich. And we chatted about it a bit. And he also said, I think that could have been really cool at the start of the movie to have like this smaller villain that we see Reed Richards deal with. And I completely agree. And I think that brings us to an interesting question to ask. Where are we with Marvel creatively right now? I made a video on social media this week talking about a big Kevin Feige interview with Variety that dropped last weekend, where he spoke about budgets, he spoke about CGI, quality, TV, all this stuff. Basically, I think the big underline of that interview is they're not only going to reboot the MCU after Secret Wars and that they're going to reset all the sacred timelines or whatever to one sacred timeline, they're also going to be shrinking budgets. They're going to do quality over quantity. TV is not going to matter anymore for the MCU. And I think right now, after Captain America 4, the movie that was so tampered with versus this movie, which feels like a very safe crowd pleaser. And same with Thunderbolts. I thought Thunderbolts I would actually liked better than this movie, I would say, or had more of a lasting impression where I'm like, oh, I immediately want to watch that again. And after Thunderbolts, I think they are aiming for a more crowd pleasing, winning back the fans type movement where they're like, okay, maybe just ground level stories. And I think Spider-Man Brand New Day next year as well, Kevin Feige talked about in that interview that that's going to be a very ground level story with the Punisher and Spider-Man and the Hulk. So it's interesting to see that Marvel is backtracking so hard, but at the same time, Kevin Feige even said he has 2 years left on his contract. What comes out in 2 years? Secret Wars. Is he setting up the MCU to reset the timelines, go back to a simpler thing to run? Because there have been past reports of saying, you know, peak COVID or whatever, when Moon Knight and all these shows were coming out, it was almost impossible to get Kevin Feige on the phone or get his attention. It's interesting the creative direction that we're going with Marvel right now, where are they going to go for quality over quantity? Because that was very much the issues that they've spoken about. Disney Plus caused them to do all these TV shows and do all these movies, and it all needs to be connected, but then it becomes homework. And I think Fantastic Four, I think Thunderbolts are the first two films in a new creative direction where they're saying, maybe we don't rush things so hard and we really focus on what the audience wants. They don't make any decisions in this movie, and it's not a spoiler to say this, that really I think people would find controversial. It's a very straightforward Fantastic Four movie. And you know what? Considering the dumpster fire Fantastic Four movies we've had in the past, I think it's an improvement. Let's hop back into some particular creative choices in this film. I think the production design, I want to praise it because this is one of the best looking or best designed Marvel movies, I have to say. I love that they went for the 60s world. I think it was a fantastic choice and they stick with it. It's not some crazy multiverse story. It's a really straightforward, maybe it's overly straightforward. And I think it's a great choice for winning back audiences to set this on Earth 828. I think the main timeline is that Earth 616, but 828 is also a reference to Jack Kirby's birthday, I believe. It feels so incredibly separate from every other MCU film. It's super refreshing that people could probably just go see this and they'll be fine. If you're a Fantastic Four fan, but you've hated the MCU, this is the movie to step in because you're going to get a good Fantastic Four movie and you don't have to worry about the rest of the MCU. Same with the costumes. Like, that's part of the production design, but the costumes are just immaculate. I loved it. I love the Baxter building. I love the character designs. All of the powers look fantastic. I'm going to stop myself. All the powers look great. The stretching, Reed Richards looks awesome. Silver Surfer looks awesome. Ben Grimm looks awesome. Galactus looks amazing. Everybody looks really, really, really good. And like the CGI overall, I have to say, about 80% of the CGI in this film is probably the best we've had in the MCU, or it's at least top 4, I would say, along with the Guardians films. Like, everything is just so distinct. It really works. In the third act, there's a couple moments where I was like, ooh, that's not great. couple of moments that stuck out, but look, for the most part in an MCU movie, I didn't feel like it was giving in to the most MCU-isms. One big thing I want to highlight, Michael Giacchino's score. He is one of my favorite composers working right now, along with Hans Zimmer, Ludwig Göransson, Lauren Balfe. Michael Giacchino scored the hell out of this movie. It's one of the best Marvel soundtracks we have had by far. I think it actually lifts a lot of the scenes that can feel a little bit empty, particularly in the third act, but also even in the second act. The fantastic, oh my god, I can't stop saying fantastic. The really good second act that's sort of an interstellar nod. It's really, really, really good, and the music is a huge factor in that it just feels so intense with the music. And Michael Giacchino, I love all the scores he's done, the Apes movies, the Batman, of course. Michael Giacchino's a genius. He's even directed a Marvel project with Werewolf by Night, but the score is definitely a huge A+ in this film that earned it some brownie points for me. I've already touched on it, but definitely there is a villain problem in this film, that the villains are not very present in the film. I think that's part of the editing as well, but as well as the third act feels a little bit rushed and by the numbers. It's a very safe movie. I'll get into the particulars and spoilers, but I have to say the third act is probably the weakest part of the film. It's kind of wild that superhero movies are not doing great overseas. Like Superman did pretty horribly globally, or not great horribly. I don't think it did horribly, but it did way better domestically than globally. Fantastic Four isn't doing amazing in Asia, so I don't know what that says for the future of the Marvel movies or superhero movies in general. It's also interesting that within Marvel, we do not have another Marvel movie for a year. Spider-Man Brand New Day comes out next July, on July 31st. I think the same week The Odyssey comes out. So we have a bit of a gap without a Marvel film, and that's been the first time in a long time that we've actually had that, and it's kind of nice. I'm actually kind of appreciative of it. We can focus on maybe a couple of TV shows that are coming out, like Eyes of Wakanda and Wonder Man. Is that it? Wonder Man? It's good to have a little bit of a break. Hopefully they can actually get Spider-Man shot before next July, because it only started filming this week and it's, coming out pretty soon. I don't know about that. We also have Avengers Doomsday coming out next Christmas, or 2 Christmases, I guess, 2026 Christmas, and then Secret Wars filming right after. I'm scared. I am a little bit scared, and I think those movies are not going to be very good, the Avengers movies. I think Spider-Man could be good. I think the Avengers movies are definitely in trouble. This is the start of Phase 6, so it's like a new chapter for the MCU. I'm excited for it going forward. I think this was a good start, but let's hop into 2 stars and a wish. Star number 1. I think this is one of the most unique MCU films, akin to Guardians. Like all of those films, it has a distinct look, a distinct feel, kinda, and although it feels more like the MCU directed Fantastic Four movie, but in comparison to the most of the MCU movies where it's like referencing 100 other things, I mean, I really enjoyed setting us in the 60s and just making it another world where it doesn't feel like characters are interrupting. Star number 2, they definitely nailed the casting. Characters are really brought to life from the pages. I think Reed Richards, they need to give him a little bit more to shine as a hero in the next film. Everyone else has really good character moments, but there's one moment with Reed Richards in the third act I really liked. I think that's probably the strongest part of the movie for Pedro Pascal. My wish, of course, is just make it longer. It's an hour 55 minutes with credits, the same length as The Incredibles, fun fact, which if you didn't know, The Incredibles is a parody of the Fantastic Four, or it's like inspired by the Fantastic Four, but it feels a little bit over edited. There's a lot missing, almost formulaic in some ways, but look, overall, I still had a really good time with the Fantastic Four First Steps. I liked it. I didn't love it. It's a nice, secluded MCU film that gives you what you want from a Fantastic Four movie, and I think that's the most important part. Just make sure you do these characters justice, because in the past, they've been in pretty bad movies. Fantastic Four is getting 4 stars out of 5. Let's jump into spoilers. All right, spoilers for Fantastic Four, or The Fantastic Four First Steps. Guys, the craziest thing just happened. I took a break, so while I was reviewing non-spoilers, I was getting a bunch of texts from my girlfriend's sister saying, oh my god, on CBC Radio, they're talking about theater etiquette right now. You should totally call in. I just called in, and I spoke for like 6 minutes, like a bunch of time before the break, and then that was crazy. I'm going to post it. I'll make it into a little video and post. That was insane. That was so much fun. I've never been interviewed before. That was kind of a blast. Okay, now I know what it's like. I can't wait for my Letterboxd 4 favorites interview. But let's talk spoilers for the Fantastic Four First Steps. Also, I did plug the podcast on the radio. That was shameless self-promotion, but all right. So the opening 45 minutes of this film are actually recapping their first 4 years. It's interesting. This movie really works in like 4-year increments, which I like. But the opening 45 minutes, they say they're not doing an origin story, like I sort of mentioned in the non-spoilers, but they kind of are, because we see a little bit of a clip show and the audio of them getting their powers. So, I mean, I don't know how much in the press run were they advocating that, like, oh, we're not doing an origin story like Superman. Like Superman, he talks about him coming to Earth. He's like, oh, I've talked about this before. And I like that. But in this, they are kind of in a little bit of a way doing an origin story. And it can feel like those first 45 minutes, I love them. And it's fun seeing like all the problems that they solved and the villains that they've taken down. But at the same time, it can feel like, all right, but let's get to the present day. There's a tough balance to strike there between doing the origin story or not doing it. And I think they kind of have their foot in both camps here, which is a dangerous game to play because you can immediately lose some audience members or you can gain more audience members, because some people, their biggest complaint of Superman was not seeing the origin story. But I will say there's a point where the Silver Surfer is going through the city in this film and we see these two comic book writers that look out a window. Are they giving a little nod to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby there? If so, I thought that was a lot of fun that there are these like two goofy comic book writers. That was a fun little Easter egg. But let's get into Paul Walter Hauser as Mole Man, and that's a lot of fun. They have him in the start of the film and the Fantastic Four defeating him, but at the same time, I think another villain would have been a little bit fun too, you know? So let's talk more Easter eggs though. I already talked about those two comic writers. They do keep showing when Sue, I guess she's kind of a United Nations representative, or she's officially in politics in this film. They do keep cutting to Latveria at the global countries. Latveria, if you don't know, it's a fake country that in the comics, that's where Doom is from, Dr. Victor Von Doom. So clearly there is a Victor Von Doom in this world. They don't really hover on it, like, or they're not like Latveria and what about you, which I really like. They keep it flowing, they keep it fast. It's a really good way to include it. At the same time, I think it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting that you need ahead of Avengers Doomsday, that you're hinting that Victor Von Doom or Latveria has pulled away from the world and maybe they're being controlled by Doom or they're a cult of Doom or whatever it may be. As for things that they did include and you can tell they cut out, maybe Ben Grimm and Rachel's relationship was a little bit more influential at the start of this film, or in the first version, in the first draft of the script, because it does feel like there's something that they're trying to do with Natasha Lyonne and Ebon Moss-Backrack, with her being a teacher or whatever she is at the local synagogue, and Ben Grimm, he walks around his old neighborhood where he lives. Ben Grimm is a historically Jewish character in all of the comics as well, so I like that they are including ethnicity and like religion in this, that it's important to the character that he is Jewish, of course. At the end of the film, I like that little bit of a moment and that they are sort of involved in each other, but I feel like there were other scenes where they interacted and that relationship grows. Just like, you know, Julia Garner and Ralph Ineson, it's a big actor that you're including in this, but they feel largely cut out. However, talking about characters that maybe weren't involved enough, Galactus's introduction is very good. That the Fantastic Four show up in this universe where they track him down, or this galaxy or whatever it is, and they think, oh, there's this planet in front of us, and it does throw you off that they immediately show his world-eating engine or whatever, and they get sucked into the space battle with him. But what they do really well is emphasizing the scale. The first time we see him, that they're all standing on this platform, it's in the trailers where he stands above them, and they are all absolutely shocked how big he is. Like, they can't believe what they're witnessing with their eyes, and they really sold that moment. It looks really good. It doesn't look like they're in the volume or this endless void. He's just this big hulking guy. You see his suit and all of the little intricacies of the suit, which is a really cool design, and the tubes in his back. And that's where kind of the wheels are set in motion for me in this film. That's where I really bought into it, not just them going to space after their first interaction with Silver Surfer, but because in that scene, Galactus can see that Sue is very pregnant, like literally very close to giving birth, and he proposes the deal. And I think this is a large part of the comics. I haven't read a single Fantastic Four comic. If you have any recommendations, please get in touch with the show, because I do want to hear from you guys about good Fantastic Four comics. But he proposes that there's a trade-off. Galactus gets Franklin because he sees that the child has powers and is going to have powers and enough cosmic energy or whatever to take over Galactus's mantle, so he'll spare Earth if they give up their child. And right there, I was like, okay, I know that's from the comics or whatever, that's been done a bunch of times, and I think Franklin Richards is the second version of Galactus, but it's a good little inciting incident for our film, or not not inciting incident because I'd say the Silver Surfer chase is that, but I was like, now there's some real stakes in this film. The Galactus scene, I think, like I said, in non-spoilers, the second act is the strongest part of this film by far, because you get the lead up to the Galactus interaction, then you get the first contact with him where it's this like, oh my god, this guy is giant. Then there's this thrilling escape in space where it's very interstellar. They have to land in the overall exoskeleton thing so they can jump to light speed or whatever it is and be protected and save on fuel. They have to ditch that. After going into a black hole, they have to use a black hole. They have to slingshot around a black hole. It's amazing. It looks fantastic. The Silver Surfer elements are so good because she's going in and out of the ship because she can float through things, of course. But at the same time, when they met Galactus, he induced labor or whatever it is on Sue. So I think Matt Shakman just did a really good job of balancing all of these different stakes and giving everything its own weight, of Johnny trying to shoot the Silver Surfer with a flame gun. That's so much fun, and bending the fire, as well as Sue going into labor, Reed having to help her, worrying about the fuel of the ship, trying to get away from Silver Surfer, Ben trying to fly the ship. It's great. It's one of the best characterizations of the group we've ever gotten, obviously. Doing so much all at once, and it pulls it off completely. I was floored in IMAX. That's a great, great, great sequence. One of the best MCU action sequences we've had by far, and they get away, they go back to Earth. It's been a month. They have their baby. It's awesome. I also want to say, like, as much as probably for a lot of Fantastic Four, the focus is on Reed Richards and Sue Storm, they give Johnny Storm a really good thing to do here, and they let him be intelligent. Like, yeah, sure, he's a ladies' man or whatever, even though we don't see him really interact with a single woman other than Silver Surfer and a makeup artist at the end of the film. But, you know, they have these deep space messages, and I liked the characterization of Johnny here because it's like he is incredibly intelligent, and it's letting everyone in the group do their own thing, or let them not only work together as a team, but at the same time give them all their own unique, distinct traits that they are good at. They are all very intelligent people. Like, Ben Grimm is very into parenting because he wants to be a good uncle for Franklin, and he's all about child-proofing the apartment in New York at the same time. But then Johnny, of course, is so obsessed with Shala Bal that he's like, I want to figure out, you know, what her message means. He figures out her origins, and I was like, oh, this is a really fun Johnny Storm through line that we can get, where he's not only a great uncle and at the end of the film trying to sacrifice himself for the sake of Earth, but then of course Silver Surfer takes the bullet just like the other films, and I didn't love that. But I have to say, Joseph Quinn really impressed me in this film. His entire character arc in this film was really, really good, and they're not just using Johnny Storm in interesting ways. I like how they use Mole Man, the villain. So there's Subterranea. Mole Man is this villain that runs the Subterranea underworld or whatever, kind of like the Underminer in The Incredibles. But at the end of the film, they have this plan where everyone in the world is going to create the teleporters, and they're going to teleport Earth to another place so Galactus doesn't show up. That fails. Then they're like, okay, we need to evacuate everyone from the surface in New York, get them to the Subterranea. So they're using Mole Man in a fun way, and it's a good little story beat where Mole Man gets to come to the Fantastic Four tower, and you're getting Reed Richards a little bit aggravated, and they all get pissed off at him. But then you get to see Sue Storm take the initiative. And again, they're writing Sue Storm in a way that she's not just like Jessica Alba was, where, oh, she gets naked in public because she doesn't know her powers, and oh, darn, Sue Storm is just such a klutz or whatever it is. Like, she is kind of the one leading this group in a lot of ways, and I really love that. They even give her this big speech that made me super emotional, where everyone in the city is saying like, well, she should give up her baby, or they should give up their baby because they could save humanity. And she goes out there with Franklin out front of the Baxter building and just gives a speech saying like, I'm not going to sacrifice my child for this world, but I'm not going to sacrifice this world for my child. It's that public interaction and public love and affection that works really well in superhero movies like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I think we were in a little bit of a period of missing that with Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, a lot of the DCEU, and Marvel Studios has kind of forgotten about that a little bit, but Thunderbolts, Superman, Fantastic Four have all kind of gotten us back on that train, and it was a lot of fun. Okay, just quickly, the third act, why I had such an issue with it. I think, you know, trapping Galactus and teleporting him is a good idea in concept, but the third act felt so incredibly rushed. It's pointless destruction. He's knocking buildings down. They have to get him in. He comes back out. Silver Surfer gives himself up. It's very by the numbers. The only moment that really stuck out to me in the third act was Galactus taking Reed Richards and stretching him to the point where his suit starts to rip and he has cuts all over himself after. I was like, oh, that's a very fun comic book moment that villains always do to Reed Richards. But then at the same time, I did like the moment where, you know, a big mystery in the movie is Franklin going to have superpowers, and Sue Storm dies because she exhausts herself from pushing Galactus as hard as she can into the teleporter helicopter thing. And then Franklin is laid down on top of Sue's chest, and he has powers that he brings her back to life. I loved it. I thought that was a touching moment. It's a really good family moment for them. I thought Pedro Pascal delivered that really well. But I will say, I was wrong. I thought Galactus was going to destroy this Earth, and that's why they go to the Avengers Earth going into Doomsday. Nope, Earth is fine, so I don't know what the lead up is going to be. But speaking of the lead up to Avengers, should we talk post-credit scenes? First post-credit scene. Sue Storm, it's 4 years later. She's reading a book with Franklin, and she goes to grab another book in the kitchen, and she comes back, and there is Doom. We only see the back of him, a hood with a glove, talking to Franklin. And that's it. It cuts to black. I was like, okay, that's fine. I like the little bit of a tease. We don't get a full reveal of Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom. I doubt it was even him in the suit. It was probably a stand-in. I mean, why would he do that? He's rich and famous. He doesn't need to be on a Fantastic Four set, It was a cool moment. I was like, all right, they're hyping us up. It looks completely different from the rest of the movie because it's shot by the Russo brothers, etc. There's a little thing at the end of the credits, before the mid-credits, or the end credits scene, pardon me, where they included Jack Kirby quote. I thought that was really nice. I thought that was just a really good touch, paying tribute way more to Jack Kirby than Stan Lee, I have to say. Right at the end credits, they show the Fantastic Four, like Saturday morning cartoon that's in this universe, where there's the "it's clobberin' time." It's fun. They only used that line once in the movie. I thought it worked really well. But you know what? I think this was largely a success. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but at the same time, there's a lot that's chopped out of here, but it's really fun. I would recommend going to see it if you're not into the MCU, or I don't know, whatever it is. It was just a blast. I had a really good time with it. It's a mixture of all of the Fantastic Four movies pushed into one. That's been the Fantastic Four First Steps, the final review before my vacation. Let's jump into what else I watched. All right, what else I watched? The final what else I watched before vacation. Very emotional day. I have a bunch of movies to talk about. I have some TV shows, and I finished All-Star Superman. So let's start with that. Wow. All-Star Superman is so much fun. It's so heartfelt. It's so emotional. Like, it's Superman dying, and he's trying to save Earth, and he's trying to come to terms with his mortality, because he is this powerful dude, but he flies into the sun and creates, a lever. He's keeping the sun going and all that stuff. It was just a thrilling second half to the book where he fights Bizarro. He gets trapped on that planet. Lois finds out that he's dying from the technology due for Project on the moon. One of my favorite comic books, or one of my favorite stories that I've read, because it was just genuinely so heartfelt. The drawings are amazing by Frank Quietly, I believe. Frank Quietly. Awesome. Like, if you haven't read All-Star Superman after the Superman movie, check it out. It was a lot of fun. TV shows, Survivor Vanuatu. I finished episodes 14 and 15, which were the finale and reunion. Yikes, because Jeff literally dated one of the contestants for several years. Her name was Julie Berry. She was 23. He was 42 when she was on the show. And as soon as the season ended, they started dating. And it's so funny watching the reunion for Survivor Vanuatu, because not only is everybody a little bit pissy with each other, but Jeff is just riding the winner, Chris, because, oh, well, you're a liar. You're a dishonest guy. And like, rightfully so, he does give Chris shit because Chris lied a lot in the season, and everybody gets mad at Twyla for lying, but Chris is lying the whole time too. So I get that. You could tell he's mad at Chris because he was a huge hand in voting Julie out, and Jeff is dating Julie at that point. So very gross. I liked it, and then I started Survivor Palau right after. Palau. I think it's Palau. I watched episodes 1 to 4. It's pretty good so far. I like that they start them all on one beach with 20 contestants. It's kind of depressing that they vote out 2 right away, because imagine going all of that way and you're voted out in a schoolyard pick. Big yikes. But I do like the tribe divisions, that the blue tribe is just so bad, and I know Stephanie is going to be on a tribe of 1 eventually, and that's the only time it's ever happened in Survivor. It's a good time. Then this morning I watched It's Always Sunny season 17 episode 4, where they're, oh my god, they are getting into slap fighting and professional slap fighting in the bar. It's a big Succession sort of rip where they're all dressing like the Succession characters and deciding who's going to take the fall for this big pyramid scheme, or this big scheme that they've been doing illegally in the bar. Meanwhile, Frank is hosting an orgy in the basement all the time while they're fighting. And I said last week how funny the ambulance episode was, but season 17 is just genuinely great. They've cracked the formula again. They are finding fun ways to bring these characters back and I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. Let's jump into movies though. Okay, this week I watched 6 movies, starting with Superman the movie from 1978. This was just a classic watch that I threw on when we were at my brother's last weekend for my grandma's 90th. I threw it on Saturday morning. We ended up watching a bunch of it, and then I finished it when I got home on Sunday night, and my God, man, it's just like magical. It's so amazing. It's like just as heartfelt as All-Star Superman, of course, but just Christopher Reeve. Like, yes, he's only good at Superman once in the first one, and then the rest of them are pretty, like, okay to bad. But that first one is just, I spoke about it last summer or earlier this year when I watched them all on 4K when I got the box set, but I had to watch it again because I was just like, after Superman, I was so in the mood for going back and watching the Christopher Reeve version again, and then I was going to go see Superman again in IMAX, which I'll talk about in a moment, but Superman 1978 is a 4.5-star movie for me. Then I rewatched Superman in IMAX. I went to a double feature Monday night. I did I Know What You Did Last Summer first, yikes, and then I watched Superman in IMAX at the late showing. It was a blast. It was just as good. Every time I've watched the movie, it's grown on me. In front of me, there was an older couple, and this was a 10 o'clock screening, but the older couple in front of me were so into it. They kept like touching each other's arms and like looking at each other, not talking, but just looking at each other. They were both laughing hysterically at all the crypto moments, at Lois Lane. Every joke landed for them, and it was just genuinely so cute to watch. They were probably in their 70s going into their 80s, and it's just, that's why we go to the theater. That's just fun to be a part of this like across generations bridge of people just enjoying a universal shared experience. It's so weird that I was just on the radio show or whatever as a call-in person talking about theater etiquette. I told them that people were clapping after my Superman screening, and the host couldn't believe it. Like, why is that? And I'm like, because it's awesome. You know, it's fun going to the movies. When I went to Oppenheimer, people were freaking blown away in the IMAX theater. I've had tons of theater experiences where people clap after. It was just such a good time at the theaters. Again, I haven't changed my rating, 4 stars. As for I Know What You Did Last Summer, holy yikes. One of the worst legacy sequels we've had in a little while. They seem so uninterested in doing original things. Like, to me, it's just Scream 5 trying to bring it to the present day with meta commentary about horror movies or the franchise and the previous installments. Like, there's a podcaster at one point in the film who is a true crime podcast, and it's just like one of the most unfunny things in the world. And she comes to the small town or whatever, Southport, whatever it's called, and she's talking about the 1997 events. So you have someone that can explain the previous movie or the original movie in the new film, and it doesn't work. It doesn't land. It's not like Scream 5 where they had Jack Quaid and Mikey Madison talking about horror movies and the horror fandom and stuff like that. I really like Scream 5 though, and I think that movie works really well, but it doesn't translate to I Know What You Did Last Summer. They also, no spoilers, they take a huge swing with one character in the third act that I thought was a waste. It doesn't feel earned, and it's like you're just doing this to separate yourselves from the other movies, and you're like, oh, well, we got to do something to make it different from the originals. And I was just like, oh no, this is like character assassination. But at the same time, speaking of theater etiquette, the I Know What You Did Last Summer experience was one of the worst theater experiences I've had in a little while. The couple beside me talking, whispering the whole time. The people in front of me, right in front of me, the woman's using her phone, looking up the actors throughout the entire film. At one point, I just stood up and I whispered in her, please put your phone away. And she did for the rest of the movie. And then I saw she got up and she was walking out. She took out her phone. I was like, oh my God, she's literally going out there to check her phone. Then she came back in. She didn't use her phone the rest of the time. That was good. But then at the front of the room, in like the second row, someone kept scrolling TikTok and Instagram the whole time, but they're too far. I'm not going to stand up and go to the front and be like, put your phone away. What can you do? Unlike last night with Fantastic Four, where a guy who came by himself was checking his phone the entire movie. I'm like, dude, you made the effort to go to a movie by yourself. One of the greatest things you can do in the world. And he's checking Reddit the whole time. I'm like, oh my God. I asked him in the first 10 minutes, can you put your phone away? He still kept checking it every once in a while. It's brutal. But as for I Know What You Did Last Summer, yikes. I mean, for legacy sequels this year, I think Karate Kid is doing a way better job and way more fun. I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2 stars. Then, of course, going into Fantastic Four, I had to rewatch the original Fantastic Fours, not including the one from the 90s, which I'm not even sure where you could find it. So starting with 2005's Fantastic Four by Tim Story, yikes. This was a lot worse than I remember. I liked this movie as a child. I don't think I've probably watched this in 10 years. Oh boy, it was bad. Maybe 15 years, even longer. Just the character dynamics are off. There's incest vibes between Johnny and Sue. 2. The Ben Grimm stuff is kind of depressing and doesn't work. I think the Ben Grimm stuff is probably the best aspect of the movie. The characterizations of Reed Richards and Ben Grimm are good, but everyone else is just so odd. It doesn't work. The script is rushed and choppy, and just the story is so blech and yucky, and it's so 2005 with the rock needle drops, you know? It just doesn't quite work. I think there's like moments where I'm like, oh, this is almost working with the character dynamics, but for the most part, it's kind of faltering and not working for me. I went with 2.5 stars. Then, of course, I had to watch Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which, albeit the Silver Surfer looks pretty good, and I like his characterization. They kind of cooked with his voice and stuff like that. That stuff works. But Galactus is a cloud. What are we doing here with the big guy that eats the planet? We're making him a cloud? Just lame. Like, the cloud does shape into him sometimes, but just dumb. Do a big walking cartoonish guy. And the dance sequence at the start where they're doing the bachelor party is just really kind of lame and cheesy. It was at a time where we're doing dance sequences in superhero movies. It just doesn't ever come together. And I hate that the Fantastic Car is a Dodge. I was just like, ugh, the product placements in these films are atrocious. Same with, I Know What You Did Last Summer. There was a Tostitos bag perfectly in shot that I was like, oh yeah, they got some money from that. They got some cashola. They got the moolah. But you know what? Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, 2 stars. And then, of course, we had to watch Fantastic Four, or Fan Four Stick as it's known, from 2015. I've never seen this film. I never dared watching it because the reviews were so bad. Oh man, it's a Josh Trank film. It's trying to do a little bit more of a body horror type thing. There are moments where I'm like, I could see a vision here, but my God, it's bad. The characterizations are all over the place. The story is terrible. The CGI is just so bad. I could not believe it. It feels so rushed, and there's certain deliveries in there that I'm like, what is going on? Like, Miles Teller is just stiff as a board, but it's just really doesn't work. And the wigs, the costumes, it's all a little bit ugh. And they end with the, say that again? Just a big yikes. It didn't work. 1 star. Like, I literally didn't find any redeeming qualities. I was like, 1 star because I can't give a 0 in my heart of hearts. You know, people worked hard on this. Apparently he was a bit of a tyrant. I saw a funny tweet this week that was like, I am one of the few people in the world that remember when Josh Trank did a 4-part podcast series with Kevin Smith leading up to Fantastic Four, and they were going to do a 4th part when the movie came out, but because of its reception and reports that Josh Trank was difficult on set, they never finished it. That's funny. That's some lost media, but guys, that's the final What Else I Watched for the summer of 2025 until September is going to be the next time we have a What Else I Watched, and I'm going to watch a lot in August, but for now, that's been What Else I Watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for episode 80, the Fantastic Four First Steps, or should I say, Fantastic Four. Great theme, great music from Michael Giacchino, a lot of fun. Let me know what you thought of Fantastic Four down below. I'm going to be on vacation for a few weeks, but do not fret. Like I said, lots of cool stuff coming out. I'm going to TIFF this fall. It's going to be a lifetime experience for me. It's going to be so much fun. New YouTube video this Wednesday, but please, as always, rate and review the show 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts, like Watcher of All Things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. We are, of course, an Acast produced show. You can comment right underneath the episode on Spotify. What'd you think of Fantastic Four? Leave a 5-star review, share it with a friend, letting them know, hey, this guy reviewed Fantastic Four. We should go see it, blah, 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 all that good stuff. If you're on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, comment, rank your MCU Phase 5 movies. This is Phase 6, right? So yeah, rank the last phase or whatever. Rank the Fantastic Four movies for me. This is easily the best one for me, of course. And check out the new YouTube video, as I said. You can also email the show, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, if you want to get in touch with me. And the social media platforms, Instagram and Threads are at Watcher of All Things. The TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. There's posts on there every single day. Even while I'm on vacation, I'm going to try and post a couple things. Check out the social medias. It's a lot of fun. Tons of stuff to enjoy there, as well as my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Follow me on there. Drop a condom. Wow, I almost just said drop a condom. Drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show, and I will follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week, you guys are going on a 4-week journey with pre recorded me Letterboxd 4 Favorites Part 1, where we are talking The Batman. So, over the 4 weeks, you will get a review for The Batman, La La Land, Hunt for the Wilder People, and Drive. You'll notice on Letterboxd, one of my 4 favorites is not Hunt for the Wilder People, it's Dune Part 1, but we've already done an episode on Dune Part 1. You can go back and find that. That was a lot of fun as well, but it's going to be a really good time talking The Batman next week. Guys, this has been a crazy journey. Before I go on vacation, I do want to just take a moment to say these last 2 years have been transformative. I mean, look, I'm not making any money from this. This is not a job or anything, but just doing this as a hobby. I've engaged with all of these amazing people. It's been so much fun figuring out what I want to do with my life and going on this crazy journey. The amount of opportunities or just different experiences I've had from this, it feels like one of those moments where this is just the beginning. I'm looking forward to this next phase of my life. Phase 6. You could call my life phase 6. What phase of the MCU is my life in? I'm really looking forward to this new chapter I'm going to be going on of moving to a city, having my own place with my girlfriend, a different life chapter. It's going to be a really different time. I'm still going to try and do this as much as I can, and I look forward to it, but I really do mean from the bottom of my hearts before I go on vacation, thank you all so much for all the love, the inspiration, the energy that you guys give me, good or bad. I love, disagreements about movies. I love agreements on movies. I just love connecting with people and having these shared experiences. I will appreciate everything I've gotten from this podcast for the rest of my life, but as for now, thank you all so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.